Kyle Pitts was one of the best tight ends in college football this past season. He broke numerous records, made college football history, and showed why he'll be a first-round pick in the upcoming NFL draft. However, not everyone saw him as a tight end. In fact, his high school coach once told him he would never make it at the position. Well, safe to say, that coach was pretty wrong. Before we get to today's video, don't forget to subscribe and turn on those notifications so you never miss another video. I'll be posting a ton of college football content all off season, so if you enjoy videos like this, then this is definitely the place for you. As a sophomore in high school, Kyle's coach insisted that he play quarterback and not tight end. But Pitts knew that the position wasn't a natural fit for him, and he wanted to try tight end out. When asked if he could make the switch, his coach told him to get in a three-point stance. After doing so, the coach then looked him in the eye and said he'll never make it at the position. Again, imagine being the coach that told Kyle Pitts, who is the best tight end in college football, finished in the top 10 in Heisman voting, and is going to be a first-round pick in this upcoming draft, that he would never make it at the position. Like, you gotta hand in your coaching credentials after that one. I always think about it, Kyle Pitts said. That's just like a chip on my shoulder, him saying that. That's just something I always remember in the back of my head. His mother recalls her son handling that situation maturely, and he kept working until he got another chance to prove himself. His first 2 years at the previous high school, he was just being a team player, even though it wasn't exactly what he wanted. He was playing out of position and just being patient to get where he needed to be. He didn't really talk too much after the games as far as being frustrated. He was just going with the flow. Kyle Pitts was already thinking though that he wanted to transfer, and he'd settle on one of the most successful high school programs in the area at Archbishop Wood, where he'd win the PIAA Class 5A state championship each of his 2 seasons there. Kyle Atkins was the defensive coordinator the last 2 years before succeeding former head coach Steve Devlin. Atkins said that he recalled hearing something about Kyle Pitts being a quarterback prior to joining the program, but he's not sure the newcomer said all that much about it. The Archbishop Wood coaches were sure of one thing though: he certainly was not going to be a quarterback once he came over to them. Between his size and his hand-eye coordination, he immediately was drawing eyes at his new school. The coaches knew that he would be one of the top recruits before he was all done. Pitts would actually become a two-way standout for the Vikings, as he was used as a versatile tight end and sometimes wide receiver in a mostly power run-oriented offense, as well as playing a key role at defensive end, which made more sense considering he was bigger than almost everyone else who stepped on the field against him. Prior to his junior season, Kyle Pitts went to a camp at Temple and worked out at tight end even though he didn't have any film at the position yet. But it was enough from Temple as he earned his first scholarship from them. Pitt, Penn State, and Maryland soon followed with offers as well. Later, Tennessee would become Pitt's first SEC offer, and after working out at Florida's Friday Night Lights camp in the summer, he committed to the Florida Gators. This is a school I always wanted to come to. You don't commit to coaches, you commit to the school. I feel like great coaches were going to come to this staff, and I would have a great career here. Although Pitts was excelling as a tight end, his coach Kyle Atkins said that one of Pitts' games as defensive end was one of the greatest performances he had ever witnessed in his life. He had the most dominating individual defensive performance I've ever seen. He affected the game in so many ways. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but everything from sacks to forced fumbles. He tipped a ball and it was picked off and returned for a touchdown. They tried to hit us on a trick play, a throwback, and he was right there. It was amazing. It was the most dominating individual defensive performance I've ever seen in my life, and it would be really hard to top it. I don't know how many teams or schools offered him as a defensive end, but if Kyle said, "I want to play defense," trust me, there would be schools knocking down his door. Though he very well could have made it as a defensive end, Kyle Pitts didn't have any interest in that. He saw himself as a tight end. He looked up to Eric Ebron and Jared Cook as he had the same mold as them and really wanted to try to model his game after them. As a tight end during his senior campaign, he finished with more than 300 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns while helping the team to its latest state title. At 6'5" and 235 pounds, Kyle Pitts was a 4-star recruit and the number 9 overall player in Pennsylvania, the number 11 tight end nationally, and the number 252 overall prospect in the class of 2018. While Kyle Pitts was sold on Florida by the previous coaching staff, he didn't panic when the coaching change was made the season prior. Pitts especially liked how Dan Mullen and his staff planned to utilize the tight ends in the Gators' new spread offense. Pitts, though, wasn't utilized at all as a true freshman in the passing game and finished the season with only 3 catches for 73 yards and a touchdown. However, entering his sophomore year, many knew that he was going to be a problem in 2019. You have to play him like he's an actual receiver, linebacker Amari Burney said. The speed, the size, athleticism that he has, you can't play him like he's a tight end and try to slow play him because he will run right past you. Then when the ball comes in, you have to hop for that ball because he's going over the top of you. Going up against him, you really have to try to body him, safety Sean Davis said. He's a big guy with good speed and he's strong. You have to play at a high level when you're against Kyle Pitts. You can't play around. Kyle Pitts quickly showed the country how big of a problem he'd be. He had 8 receptions for 65 yards against number 7 Auburn. He had 5 receptions for 108 yards against number 5 LSU. Both of these games were on national TV, and college football fans everywhere were learning the name Kyle Pitts. "He's phenomenal," wide receiver Trayvon Grimes said. "He's a freak of nature. He's a mismatch with anybody, any DB, any linebacker. Anybody you put on him, he's a mismatch. I kind of feel people are starting to notice that. He's the best, in my opinion, tight end in the country." But what he's doing, how fast this was happening, was not surprising to Dan Mullen. He said that he saw this coming when he first saw Kyle Pitts going through spring practice as a true freshman back in 2018. Right away, you knew he was something special. Certain times, it takes a little bit of development for those guys. Coming in from a high school offense to a pro offense, there are certain adjustments that come with it, with how to run routes and how to do things. He made some big plays for us last year, not quite like this year. Pitts has become a matchup problem for opposing defenses because he has the size of a prototypical tight end and the speed, hands, and route running ability of a wide receiver. Pitts spent a chunk of spring working with Billy Gonzalez and the wide receivers, improving his craft. That's what makes him deadlier than a normal tight end. Pitts said his time with the receivers has helped accelerate his development. "It helped me in the passing game, knowing how to get off press and how to get open on some routes against DBs. I've been maturing, working harder in the offseason, working with the receivers and the tight ends in the offseason. It's helping me develop. Usually your junior year is the year you break out, but God had a different plan for me this year." In only his sophomore season, Pitts was already one of the best tight ends in the country. "He does things every day in practice you probably never will see anyone else do with how big and how fast and how agile he is," Grimes said. "He played receiver last year, so we learned a lot of things from Coach Gonzalez that he brings over to the tight end room. That being said, he just knows how to get in and out of breaks smoothly. He knows how to catch the ball really well and blocks well." Somehow, Kyle Pitts was left off the list as semifinalist for the John Mackey Award, given annually to the nation's top tight end. However, he was named as a semifinalist for the Walter Camp Player of the Year award. Pitts was the only tight end included in the group of 20 semifinalists, which included 6 quarterbacks, 6 running backs, 4 receivers, and 4 defensive players. So I don't really know or understand how that's possible, but it happened. He led the Gators across the board with 54 catches, 649 yards, and 5 touchdowns. All those numbers had him in at least the top 7 among tight ends in the country. "We have a great tight end in Kyle Pitts," receiver Van Jefferson said. "He's come on strong and had a really good year. Him being in and him creating mismatches, you gotta throw it. He's gonna catch it 100% of the time." During this past offseason, Pitts gained 11 pounds of muscle. Entering spring, he wanted to fill out his frame to become a more complete tight end. Florida made a very underrated move during the offseason, bringing in North Carolina tight ends coach and recruiting coordinator Tim Brewster. He had some experience with tight ends, as he was the first coach to coach Antonio Gates as an undrafted free agent and former college basketball player in 2003. 1 year later, Antonio Gates earned first-team All-Pro honors. At Florida State, Brewster also is credited with the development of Nick O'Leary, who won the John Mackey Award and was named a consensus All-American in 2014, a year after Brewster was added to the staff. "You look at George Kittle," Brewster said. "George Kittle can get vertical down the field, can make great explosive plays in the passing game, and he can set the edge of the front. I mean, he does a great job in the run game, competing, and that's what I want to do with Kyle. I want to help him. I want to take him to that place where he's got the same amount of confidence in the run game as he does in the passing game." Well, Pitts showed that this was going to be a special year right out of the gate. In Florida's first game of the season against Ole Miss, Kyle Pitts tied a school record with 4 touchdown receptions. He became the 3rd FBS tight end since 1996 to have 150 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns in a game. Pitts' 170 receiving yards were the highest single game total by a Gator in 6 years. He became the only Gators tight end since 1996 to have 3 receiving touchdowns in a game. After his performance, he was named the Mackey Award Tight End of the Week. He responded the following week by adding 2 touchdowns against South Carolina. Over his next 3 games, he racked up 12 catches for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. Then, against Kentucky, Kyle Pitts became the first Gator since 2002 to have 3 games of 2+ receiving touchdowns in the same season. He caught 5 passes for 99 yards and 3 touchdowns. He was one of 8 SEC players since the start of 2000 to have multiple games of at least 3 receiving touchdowns in a season. Kyle Pitts' 11 receiving touchdowns were already the most touchdowns in a season by a Gator since 2001, and this was through his first 6 games. Obviously, Kyle's a mismatch, Dan Mullen said. That's what we want in a tight end, is a guy that creates problems all over the field. If you look at Kyle, people wondering, okay, from 1 year to the next, well, he played a lot more flexed out his freshman year, a lot more as a receiver. It really helped him to learn to be a great receiver and a route runner and play in space at that time. Last year, we asked him to do everything, and I thought he did a great job. He was one of our premier playmakers on the team. Is he a receiver? Is he a blocker? Yes and yes. But defensively, you're trying to match strength with strength, and you say, hey, We're going to go put a big guy in there because we've got to have somebody big at the point of attack physically to match up against him, and he's a superior athlete to that person. Or I've got to put a much more athletic guy in and he can out-physical him. I've got to put in a speed guy and he can outsize him. He just creates mismatch problems for the defense and he'll be a main focal point of the offense. Kyle Pitts then caught 7 passes for 130 yards against Tennessee and followed that up with 7 catches for 130 yards and a touchdown against Alabama in the SEC title game. He broke the school record for career receiving yards by a tight end with 1,492, and he needed only 24 games to do that. His 12 receiving touchdowns this season are the second highest total by a tight end in SEC history. His 770 yards this year are the second most on Florida's single season record by a tight end. Kyle Pitts is the first tight end in Gators history and the 8th in the last 5 years to have 3 games of 100 plus receiving yards in the same season. Now, as he's breaking all these records, just imagine if Kyle Pitts would have played a full season consisting of 12 or 13 games. He was named as a finalist for both the Biletnikoff Award, becoming the first tight end to ever be nominated, as well as the Mackey Award, which is given out to the best tight end in the country. In addition, Kyle Pitts finished in 10th place in the voting for the Heisman Trophy, becoming the first tight end to finish in the top 10 since 1977. Kyle Pitts finished the season with 43 catches for 770 yards and 12 touchdowns. He was the second leading receiver on the Gators, but also finished in the top 25 of receiving yardage among all receivers in the country this year. Again, he played in only 8 games. Former Heisman winner Desmond Howard raved about Kyle Pitts, saying he's one of the best tight ends he's seen in recent memory. This guy is so rare and so unique. He's a matchup nightmare for all opposing defenses. You can line him up and attack in a traditional tight end position, you can put him in the slot, or you can put him out wide. He has supreme confidence in his hands, he's a great route runner, and he has excellent route running skills. I love the way he catches the ball. He attacks the ball, and I'll tell you what, this guy was one of my favorite players throughout the season. What hurt him is that he missed 3 games. He was in concussion protocol, and when he was on the field, the Florida Gators were a completely different offense. 12 receiving touchdowns, 18 yards per catch as a tight end. Are you kidding me? He was something that we've never ever seen before at the tight end position. Unfortunately, that Alabama game would be the last game we'd see from Kyle Pitts in a Gators uniform. You can completely respect it, Dan Mullen said. He's a guy that has the opportunity to be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft, a phenomenal athlete, the premier tight end, I think, in the country. I give him a lot of credit for working his tail off to get healthy enough to play last night's game. Had a huge game. We talked that he's going to go prepare for the next step. Kyle Pitts is ranked number 1 among tight ends by ESPN draft analyst Mel Kiper Jr. and Todd McShay. Kiper ranks Pitts as the number 7 overall prospect, and McShay ranks him as the number 10 overall prospect. He'll without a doubt be the first tight end taken in the draft, but the only question is, how high is he going to go? So, where do you think Kyle Pitts is going to fall in the NFL draft? What team do you think would be the perfect landing spot for him? Drop a comment down below and share with me your thoughts. Also, what are your thoughts on his high school coach telling him that he'd never make it as a tight end? How do you think he feels after seeing Pitt's success? If you haven't done so yet, if you could please take a second to give this video a thumbs up, I would greatly appreciate it. It really helps share the video with more college football fans, and it helps the channel grow as well. Also, don't forget to subscribe and turn on those notifications so you don't miss another video. If you enjoyed this video, I'm going to be posting a ton of college football videos all off season, so definitely make sure to hit that subscribe button. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.